Hello everyone and welcome back to Whisky Wednesday, a slightly different surrounding while we redecorate downstairs. Today I'm here to talk to you about this thing. Longrow Red, 7-year-old Pinot Noir cask matured, 57.1%, the 2024 release. Now I was lucky enough to win this in a Royal Mile Whiskies ballot. They have quite an interesting ballot system. As many people can enter as they want. Then they remove duplicate accounts and things, and if you're lucky, you will win something. I've entered loads of stuff. This is the first one I've ever won. It was quite a privilege. It's been open for about a month now. I've had a fair chunk out of it, given some samples to some friends and things. Heavily peated Springbank. This spent 4 years in bourbon and 3 years in, I think it's French Pinot Noir casks. All natural colour, as you would imagine. Let's see if I can get the light through this to look at this kind of beautiful reddish colour. You know what, the last bottle of Springbank we properly reviewed on this was a Longrow about 2 years ago. It was Longrow Gold. And I loved it, and for like 40-ish pounds a bottle, it's some pretty outrageous liquid. This cost me the grand total of, I think, £71 before shipping. And I'd say for £71, it's quite good value for what it is. It's quite fun, it's experimental. But people are already selling it on the secondary market, and they're only going for between their retail price and £90. And I'm like, folks, for the sake of 15 quid, what are you doing? Including shipping and listing fees, it's just not worth your time. There are 10,000 bottles of this in the world. We all know it's difficult to get hold of Springbank, but I will say it's becoming a little bit easier due to the amount that this that has been released. But yes, I'm hoping people open it because it is quite a fun experimental liquid. This is my first ever bottle of Longrow Red, so quite an interesting experience to see what this thing does over time. Here it is in the glass. Try not to get too much light filtering through that. This is beautiful, just kind of orangey gold colour. It almost gives you like a hint of rosé about it. The lighting is much better in here than it is downstairs. I might film everything up here. But I won that ballot, I think was early-ish June, maybe like the 10th, 11th of June. And I picked this up just before my birthday, on the 16th. So it was quite a nice birthday celebration. But let's smell, let's taste, let's see what's going on. As with all things Longrow, it is peaty, but it isn't the smokiest kind of whiskey. And being matured in Pinot Noir casks is giving it those beautiful soft red fruit notes. And the bourbon cask is also delivering bits of caramel and things like that. When I first opened this, it wasn't sweet at all. It was very robust, very meaty, very like deli meat, prosciutto-y, fatty meat kind of thing. There has been a fair bit of sweetness developing it since. What is that sweetness? There's a really unusual lavender note, which I really wasn't expecting at all. A very chalky, kind of candy sweet thing to it. Think about those candy love hearts you get. Almost like a red wine vinegar. There is something a little unusual in it. Kind of like a cardboardy note. I got that quite a lot with the Isle of Harris release as well. Yeah, the red wine vinegar thing, that kind of morphs into strawberry. There's almost like a slightly balsamic note to it. Something very like toppy, very sort of trebly and tart. The smoke is coming across really delicate. It's really subtle. It's just kind of adding a bit of a blanket to all these now fruity flavours. Is there any of that meatiness still kicking around? A little bit, but it's coming across more like I'm obsessed with deli meats and like Italian meats recently, so there's almost like a mortadella thing to it, that kind of slightly sweet pork with those pistachio nuts in it. And then that morphs into like slightly honeyed, and candied lemon, candied orange. It's a nice mix of savoury and sweet. But let's see what the palates say. It's my first whiskey of the day. So, first sip's really dry. This is my first whiskey of the day and my first cask strength whiskey of the day. So let's ignore that note for the minute and my palate will adjust. You've got that classic springbanky oily texture. There is some beautiful peanutty, very bourbon heavy flavours, and even though Pinot Noir has had the biggest influence on its colour, majority of the time it's been spent in a bourbon cask, so we should expect things like that. There is almost like a corny note to it, like a sweet buttery corn note. The candied lemon thing and the orange thing are kind of coming in from both sides of my palate now. They're coming across as quite cleansing. We will have another sip in a minute. We'll talk about the finish now and then after another sip. The finish now is heavy on some of those tartar and meatier notes. We've got that balsamic-y tart strawberry thing, but then we've also got that, not quite the mortadella pistachio thing, but more just like olive oil and salt. And then the smoke kind of comes all the way back up into your tongue and kind of splits. And it's this kind of layering of smoke, almost like dry ice at an old school disco or something. It's kind of filling up the floor quite gently. Very nice on the first sip. Let's have another one and see what happens. So yeah, not as dry that time. Palate's had time to kind of get used to the alcohol. A little bit spicier, a little bit drier on the finish. Weird enough on that sip, it tasted very young. I mean, it is only a 7-year-old whiskey, let's not forget that. Well, 7 and a bit probably, but there's almost a new make spirit, the peanut thing's there again. That cardboard thing is there again too. Really does remind me of that Isle of Harris first release, just with a lot more going on. And then slightly meatier, just at the end again. It's a very chewable whiskey. It's a very interesting whiskey. Like I say, it's the first Longrow Red I'm ever going to experience in a full-size bottle, kind of getting through it. I'm excited to see what happens as we get 3/4 of it. It is relatively complex and relatively interesting. It's not particularly exciting, though. They've done quite a lot of these now. I think this is like the 15th or the 16th release of these or something from my count, but that could be very wrong. And it's really fun, and it's fun to be able to get it and to explore this bottle. But it's not really lighting my world on fire. I think if I'm being honest with you, I probably would have preferred to maybe get a Springbank 10 in that ballot and just open that for like £55 because the 10-year-old is still my favourite one. Yeah, it's nice, but it isn't blowing my mind. I think like a solid 7.5 is pretty valid for this. Longrow Reds of the past may have been significantly more unusual and interesting and fire starting, but for this, you know, it's a privilege to be able to have it. I'm going to enjoy getting through it. I'm going to enjoy sharing it with people. But I think like a 7.5 is a pretty valid score. You know, £70-ish a bottle, if you can pick up on a shelf, it's very good. I wouldn't pay more than that in any way. I don't think it's worth more than that. But yeah, that's my view on things. So there you go. 2024 Longrow Red 7-year-old Pinot Noir finish. And yeah, a nice 7.5 out of 10 from me. Thank you all very much for watching. Next week I'll have a whiskey distillery that I've never reviewed on this channel before. So keep an eye out for that, and I'll see you then. Cheers.